Everybody, it's Dr. Heather back with the Junk You Should Know show. This is our second show, and last week's show went crazy. It's had already 2.2 thousand views, I think. So I'm super excited about that. I hope we get some momentum with it because guess what? Everybody has junk you should know. So I can't wait to bring some more people on the show and share with you things that you should have in your toolbox. And we're going to be talking a little bit about that. Before I introduce my guest today, Cori Moore, I'm going to just talk briefly about the announcement that Mark Zuckerberg made yesterday on Facebook. And a lot of you may not have seen it, but you will feel it very quickly. And what the announcement is Mark made a very, very, very public statement about completely transforming how Facebook is going to interact. He wants to move very dramatically over to relationships and interacting with friends and family that you very specifically identify. There's going to be a big switch with pages not getting the kind of reach that it's already declined, but now it's going to decline dramatically. You're also going to be penalized for any kind of baiting, any kind of, sort of fake conversations that are going on. There's a whole list that you'll get put on and you won't get pushed out there with anything else you do. And the reason I'm mentioning it is because this broadcast comes on a well-fit and fed business page. And what that means is that when you used to see stuff coming from me, you may not anymore. And business pages are just not going to show up in your feed like they used to. And some of that's really good. I mean, who doesn't agree that it's gotten a bit spammy, right? And sometimes you're seeing stuff that you're just not even sure why that is. So hopefully it'll fix that problem. But for any of us who are entrepreneurs in the online space or business owners that have a page, that's going to change your whole Facebook plan. And so what it's going to mean, it's going to be more pay to play. It's going to be more paid advertising. It's going to be more building relationships with individual people so that they specifically ask for your content. And so what I'm going to, as an example, as you're watching the show, take a second to go up to the well-fit and top of the page and hit notifications and hit get notifications. Because if you don't hit that, you'll never see any of this stuff because they're just not going to push it out anymore. So that's my one little tidbit from current news events today. Mark Zuckerberg. I like the intent, but it is going to impact the thousands and thousands and thousands of businesses that have been very successful on Facebook. It's going to change practically overnight. So just if you want to read more about that, there's lots all over Facebook this morning, and you can get more on that. The social, I'll put his link below. He did a wonderful 11-minute video this morning breaking down each part of Mark Zuckerberg's post and explaining what that's going to mean for you as a business. So I'll put that in the link below. It's the social, I can't remember his name, but he is Mr. Social Guru. And I'll put his name in so you can watch that video as well. So without further ado, we're going to get started. And today we're talking to Cori Moore, who I love and adore, and we're going to be talking about mobilizing your inner athlete. But first, Cori, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited that you're here. And we actually tried to do a Facebook Live, I don't know, it was a year ago or something, and it was chaos. Neither of us could get it was all me in the end because my microphone had broken on my computer and I didn't know. But we're phoning each other and putting earphones in and out, and we took about 20 minutes of just chaos to try to get online, and we couldn't. So I think it was meant to be because I'm meant to have you on today. And I'm very, very excited to have you here. So we're going to talk about your business, iTRI 365. But first, I want to ask you a couple questions. You know, we're talking about mobilizing your inner athlete. So I'd like to know what your path has been as an athlete with exercise and fitness in your life.
It started very, very young. Because I came from, I honestly think I had a somewhat difficult childhood between parents, and my father, in an attempt, I think, to keep me on the straight and narrow, got me involved in sports very young. So starting at 8, I was in basketball, in the gym. I was a gym rat. So I played basketball for a good 9 years, blew out my ACL twice, put that away, and turned to running. I've been a distance runner since I was 11, so I've always been an athlete in the sense that I've been competing, and I've been involved in sports, whether it was individual or group sports. I ran through college, not competitively, but consistently, and got married, had kids, and my husband got me into triathlon. And so I've done that for 4 or 5 years now, and still run. I'm not competing this year, but I am into the bike racing scene.
That's fantastic. And I think a lot of folks who maybe are just sort of not as active, not fully into fitness, maybe they've weight trained a little bit, maybe they've, dabbled with biking or running. The whole concept of a triathlon is super intimidating.
Yeah.
So is that how iTRI 365 started, was kind of to help that person get the confidence and the coaching they needed so that they could be successful in competing in a triathlon?
From my standpoint, yes. So when we started, my husband and I came together with an idea of bringing some sort of training system to the public for triathlon. We didn't really have much of that in my area. And then that kind of evolved into more specifically into coaching. But for me, I love to see people break out of their shell, try things new, challenge themselves. And triathlon is very daunting. It's very overwhelming and it can be intimidating, especially for people that don't identify as an athlete. So I spend a lot of time building confidence and getting them to peak outside of their comfort zone just enough to get them through. Sometimes it's just finishing that first race. But that was really what it's turned into and what I am most passionate about, where people call me the beginner's coach, because that's pretty much what I specialize in.
Well, I love that, because I think there's lots of folks that wouldn't even consider it. So they take it off the table before they've even really thought about it. And I've literally watched you coach several, happens to be women, from never having even gotten on a bike to competing in their first triathlon. And what a powerful thing that is for them personally. I'm sure you have seen that.
It is. And I love that. I just get such a rush out of that, because I watch them almost blossom. They come from being very intimidated to, holy shit, I just did that. I didn't know I was that strong. I didn't know I could do those things. And that just fuels me. It makes me want to be a part of that even more. And it's an honor to be a part of that journey.
For sure. And I love the idea that when we stretch ourselves physically in fitness and exercise and whatever endeavor that is, it translates into the rest of our life. It translates into our relationships, our business. I remember listening to a guy presenting, and he talked about how he coaches very big corporate CFOs, executives. And he said there was one company he worked with, and they always looked on the resume for any competitive physical stuff. Were they a marathoner? Did they compete in triathlons or whatever? And they would take that person very quickly over any of the other competition. And the reason is if you can get your head around that level of challenge and you can have the discipline to do the training and you can complete and get it across the finish line, no pun intended, then that absolutely affects your confidence in your business and how you are in your life, right?
Totally agree with that.
Yeah. So do you think, I know that when we think of the subject of well-being, fitness is a huge part of it. So when you're coaching folks, do you also talk about the fact that fitness is going to affect their overall well-being, their stress levels and all of that?
Yes, I do. And we discuss stress. That's a big factor because, as you know, I have a chiropractic background, and most people don't realize that stress is cumulative, but stress is stress. Whether it's a positive or a negative, your body doesn't always differentiate between that. So there's
absolutely
a big amount of balance, but there's also a realistic expectation that needs to come with. I have athletes that come to me and I want to do a full Ironman, and just they want to bite it off. And I don't squash that in the beginning, because I think that's great to have major big goals. But I have to get them from this major goal where they think that, they're working a full-time job and they've got 3 kids at home, and you're basically committing to a part-time job training for a full Ironman. Yeah. So the stress, that's an exceptionally stressful thing, and you can feel like a failure by not being able to reach that goal.
Yeah.
So I have to work on mindset from the get-go when it comes to stress and
that makes sense.
Expectations and doing things as healthy as possible from the beginning.
Yeah, I love that. And that also leads me to think it's also great training in setting that goal, but then breaking it down into projects, action steps, stuff we have to do in business and life. And it's a great practice for that. Would you agree?
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So many of the folks that I coach, in fact, I remember I had somebody say to me recently, she said something about like that what I taught wasn't applicable to her. And I thought, well, I might be showing you some fitness that's beyond your capacity right now, but everything is modifiable. Everybody can participate in some way. So how do you help people like mobilize and move those barriers out of the way of them feeling like, oh, well, I could never do that. And I'm too old for that. And that's beyond my capabilities. How do you help get them thinking differently?
I always ask them why they say that. So that's my first thing. Why are you saying that? Why do you think you're too old? If I can tap into the belief system, the core, to the root of why they believe that, then we can talk through it. But if it's just because, well, I'm in my 50s, I'm just too old, and I say why, and they have no answer, well, that's BS. So what you're doing is you're giving me an excuse. So let's go a little bit deeper. Normally, what it boils down to is they're scared.
Yeah.
They're scared to go through that. So if I can get to that place where I can see them acknowledge a fear, we can work through a fear, and I can put them in a situation, even if it's sitting on a bike and doing something for 20 minutes, and they're like, oh my God, I just did that. Okay, you can sit on a bike. Now let's get the bike off the trainer and let's get on the road. Oh my gosh, I could do that. So it's baby steps, but if the key for me in working with athletes, and especially women and moms, is to get them past what's usually an excuse.
Yeah. I find that, isn't it amazing? The walls around us are usually erected by ourselves.
Yes. Yes.
And I do think that, and I think your method of doing why until they can't answer it anymore, and then they're like, oh, that's not actually a real reason. I love that. And so I think that's important for us to go through personally when we put our own limitations, stop and have that conversation and say, wait a second, why do I say that I can't do that? But why do I think that? And then, and like you say, take it all the way back to what's the source of that? And sometimes it's nothing. Sometimes it's a fear that you have to address. Yeah. So now here's a question. Do you have any techniques? Because I might have somebody who's ready, but they have, well, I'm embarrassed to get into a bathing suit. I'm embarrassed to try the TRX at the gym because I might look funny. How do you deal with that kind of that just insecurity and feeling like, that embarrassment so much that it holds them back?
Normally, I let them do what they want to do. If they want to wear a t-shirt over their bathing suit, that's fine, or wear shorts, or put something on. What typically happens, especially in the tri world, is you will be in the group and you'll actually be more embarrassed wearing something inappropriate than what everyone else is wearing. So there's no modesty as a triathlete because we're wearing millimeter of latex or spandex or lycra, and so that's just the sport, and we all look that way. We've all got the rolls hanging over, and once you realize that nobody's looking at you, or that you're the one that looks a little bit more silly because you have on, a poncho, and you get nowhere. So if you're wearing all of these clothes, you have, you're heavier, you're drafting, you're not as fast, it's harder, you're working harder. Yeah. But still, that's still a viable, and I wouldn't discount that as a fear that needs to be dismissed. Yeah, I agree. And one of the things I try to work on is think about the fact that you're letting someone else's reaction stop you from achieving your goal. Yes. And that, to me, I get really passionate about that because I feel like, why would you let anybody else's thoughts, and like you said, nobody's thinking it, that's in your head. Mm-hmm. But even if they did,
why would you let that hold you back from your goals? And just keep firing into that. Because I think that's in mobilizing your inner athlete, that's a very real thing for people is I want to go to the gym, I'm embarrassed because I don't know what I'm doing. And then like you say, if you dig down, it's a big capital E excuse in the end, right? For a lot of people. I mean, I'm not saying it's not valid. It's valid. And I've caught myself doing that on occasion. And I'm like, whoa, and have a little talking to.
Right.
But I think it's important, but that's great. Now, as a business person, I always like to know, tell me about the evolution, the naming and the branding of your company, as a woman-owned company. And I know you own it with your husband, but I know you run a lot of the business side of things. How did that come about? And what were some of the stumbling blocks?
Oh man. So just for full disclosure here, I have to credit my husband for coming up with a name. He is the visionary, the pie in the sky guy. Of course, I'm the facilitator here, but when we talked about it, I started a Facebook page in 2012. Well, this didn't come to pass until almost 2015. So it was marinating, and I was scared. Just like a triathlete trying to get into triathlon, I wanted to be that entrepreneur, but I was scared to take that leap. I wanted to make sure I, dotted all my I's, crossed all my T's, and we ended up one night with a group of friends who were on board. They loved the idea, and I think we had a few drinks and just that illusion of confidence when you have a few glasses of wine in your system, and we just decided that we were going to run with it. And when we did, we just took off. So we had the name. We thought it was a cool name. We stuck with it. Now the things that we've done have evolved, and they still evolve. Yeah. But my husband, we've got the event production side of things, so he just thought it would be a good idea for us to time events. So it's a conglomerate of nights of friends. It's been a fun adventure. We do a lot of silly stuff, but there's no major inspirational story. It's usually round table, drinks, dinner, and good times.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, and I love that. iTRI 365 started out as one thing, and now you guys are timing events. You're putting on events, and you and I've talked about some other little arms that are in the works as well. So that's the nature of the entrepreneurial mindset as well, isn't it? It's kind of like find a need and meet it, and you've been doing that, which is fantastic.
So I can totally relate to athletes. So they can't tell me that they're scared because I live in that. Well, you got to do it anyway.
Yeah.
You got to do it anyway.
Yeah, I know you're scared, and we're going to do it anyway because the goal is too big. It's too important not to achieve it, and so we have to try for sure. What advice do you give to competitors or athletes who are just getting going? And I believe everyone is an athlete, so I'm going to keep referring to them as athletes. Athletes who are just getting going, who have tried before and they've fallen off the wagon. And how do you balance that cycle of I'm doing it and then, I skipped a couple days. Now I haven't done it in 3 months. Is there a way that you help keep people motivated and keep the structure going?
I do. As a coach, people are paying me to help them through this. So, I have to have some of those talks that are like, hey, you're paying for this accountability. If I have to go the hard route, you don't need to pay me if you're not going to do the work. This is what we talked about. This is what you're wanting to do. Is this still what you want to do? And sometimes it's a life situation. It's not time. It's just a bad season for them to be biting off this chunk of training. Yeah. And they need to scale it down and just focus on being healthy and active. But if you have committed to doing training and you miss a few days, that's one thing. You miss a week or two, some things happen. I get that.
Yeah.
But accept the fact that it happened. Don't linger on the guilt. Don't sit there and beat yourself up about how you missed all these days. And no, let it go. Yeah. It happened. Accept it. Let it go. And let's get back on. Let's get back on the train. Let's do this. Let's move forward.
I love the accountability that costs you money is, I think, some of the strongest motivation. And that's why coaches are so successful, is because they provide the accountability and you're also paying them. So I love that.
You don't want to waste your money.
No.
So I don't want you to waste it either.
Yeah. So I think for folks that are out there who are struggling with that, hamster wheel, find somebody you can hire. And if you can't hire, then find somebody who can tap into you, a friend or somebody who you really trust, who you will listen to help hold you accountable. I think that's a big one.
Groups are great for that. I always encourage you to get into, find a group run, find a tri club, find a Facebook page.
Yeah.
Just get plugged in somewhere and start communicating. If you're an introvert,
I love that.
on a computer screen. But if you don't mind being around people, get involved, get connected.
That's so true. And I think what you just said, you may not be up for an Ironman, but you might be up for a 5K. And if I get out of bed and I'm like, oh, that 5K is in 10 days, you're going to go. You're not going to hit snooze on the alarm. And so, like you say, that's almost built-in accountability, isn't it? If you have an event coming up.
Sure.
I think that's really true. I think the other thing too, Cori, when I'm coaching folks, I find that if we can talk a little bit about the fact every time you keep a promise to yourself, builds a neural pathway toward keeping promises to yourself. So every time you skip the gym, every time you say, I'll do the ride tomorrow, you're building pathways toward not keeping commitments to yourself. So starting small. I'm going to do something very small, but I'm doing it consistently, and I'm going to keep that promise to myself, and then you build on that. I think that's really important too.
That's good practice.
Yeah. So I'm going to dig into a little bit of personal stuff. Your business partner, now is your husband moonlighting as your partner, or you both are full? I know you're full-time. Is he full-time with iTRI 365 as well?
No, he's not. So we're three women business owners as far as legalities go. There are three of us. But he's still an integral part of the team. I have to pull him away and, hey, I need you to come to an event and help me. But he's not full-time. Yeah,
I love that. And so what are some of the struggles when you are in business with your husband?
It can get complicated and heated. It did in the beginning. It really did, because we're both two alpha personalities. And the joke is that he forgets who's in charge on race day, which is me. And his alpha male wants to come in and start barking orders. But it's gotten better. We really had to learn boundaries and communicating, and the key to that was really defining and establishing our roles. So as long as he knows that this is what his job is, then he can go and do his job, and I'm not going to bother him with that. I'm going to trust him to do his job, and he needs to let me do mine.
Yeah, that's great.
That's been a challenge, but I think we've grown incredibly and significantly through this process.
I love that. I know we've got Cheryl is watching, and she's one of your excellent success stories. And she's such a good example because she's a mom. She's a business owner. Yeah. She manages a family. She did all that, and you helped her find a path to completing her first triathlon. Is that right?
Yes.
So I don't think she'd mind, but will you share just a little bit of her story? Of just,
sure.
I know, because we both know her. She's a lovely woman. And I don't know if Cheryl had done a bunch of stuff before, or.
No.
Such a great example.
She has an athletic background from when she was younger. And I think one of the things that propelled her forward is wanting to be active and finding time for herself. So this was more about finding a piece of life that belonged to her that she could time for. And that again hits home with a lot of the people that I work with, because moms have a hard time doing that. And I'm a huge proponent for moms especially taking time for themselves and not feeling guilty about it, and not feeling bad that time wasn't spent doing the 5 million other things that we could be doing. Yeah. And that is okay.
Yeah, that list is always 5 million long. It might change, it's just, that's always how it is. And that's such a great point about, as a woman, as a mother, we do have that tendency. And so carving out something that is healthy for you and physical and clears your mind and all that, I think that's such great advice.
She's done great because she had such small children. Yeah. So she is a great example, a great person to talk to about how did she make that happen with small kids at home, still breastfeeding, still running a company, still being a doctor, and doing, she unschools. So the kids are home always around her. So that is a feat in itself to not only do one discipline, but do three.
Yeah. Well, and I think that is a tremendous example. I see that, thank you, Cheryl. I see that Dr. Laura is on too. And Dr. Laura was our guest last week, and she also has completed at least 2 Ironmans. I can't remember if it's more than that, but she also had 2 young boys at home and she has a multidiscipline practice. And I think the example is, yes, these women are freaking rock stars, but the other piece is then all of us can get out and do something.
Yes. Yes.
All of us can. If these women can get through that level of intense training on 3 different disciplines, like you say, then the rest of us can get out 4 or 5 days a week, half hour, 45 minutes to an hour, and do something.
You're getting past those excuses.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I wanted to talk about, okay, so you have a Facebook page and you have a website. Yes, see. Tell me a little bit about some of the resources on your website. What can I find there?
So we have blogs. A lot of them are very, very much beginner friendly. So it breaks it down. Swimming, I noticed, I figured this out early on. I worked with 3 collegiate swimmers who could not, for the lack of them, figure out how to run. And their struggle was breathing on the run. But swimming and running with the breathing is a stark difference. And then I had runners who couldn't figure out how, and I was one of them, how to breathe in the swim. So I again, love to work with beginners, so we try and break things down at a very discernible level. So you're reading it and you don't feel like it's over your head, or you feel like some pro is trying to get you to turn into an Olympian. It's very much easy to read, easy to follow. I'm actually finishing up my my book for beginner triathletes. So
Yay!
Yeah, I'm in the editing stage of that, but that'll be a free download, a free PDF. Just of resources that's
fantastic. Will you let me know as soon as that's done so I can promote it on the Well Fit and Fed site?
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Now, one thing I want to say is, Cori, you're one of the best writers I've ever met in my life. And so your blog posts and I'm sure your upcoming book are easy to read. There's a little sense of humor weaved in there. It feels like we're just having a conversation when I read your stuff. So do head over there. And like you say, if you're a beginner triathlete, or, you're learning to swim or you're learning to bike, apart from an actual triathlon, go check out your blog posts. Yeah. And I know you have a bunch of links and websites for resources too, as well. Is that right?
I do.
Excellent.
But I will always say this to anybody that's watching. I am a really passionate about people supporting the local businesses and the local entrepreneurs that are in their area. So if you're getting plugged in, tap into your local shop. Like your local bike shop usually knows everything that you need to know. If you need to know where the local triathlete groups are, go call your local bike shop. If you want to get on a bike or you need to figure out where the tri stuff is, those guys, they usually know everything there is to know about what's going on if bikes are involved in any way.
I love that. And I've seen that with running shops too. And so if anybody is alone out there and they don't have someone to run with, or they feel like they need extra accountability, back to our accountability comment, go down to your local bike or run shop, find out, because often they have runs or bike rides starting from the, right?
Exactly.
Starting from the store. And then, so then you can meet people and you can, start getting a community of people.
Exactly.
Yeah. I also think too, some of the, not everyone is familiar with meetup.com, but there are meetup groups. So if you go to meetup.com and just type in your area and type in biking or running or triathlons, often a lot of groups will come up that they're free to join, and it's just an instant community of people to support you. So I think that's helpful too. Are you still, because I want to ask you, because I know Cheryl did not live near you, are you still coaching? Can someone from Seattle call you to get coached, or is your coaching part of your business sort of full right now? Where are we at with that?
No, I do both. So we do long distance training. That just takes a lot of communication online.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time just answering messages all the time with beginners, like newbie beginners. Cheryl and I were friends before, I started that coaching process, but sometimes it's hard if you can't be in person.
Yeah, that makes sense.
With beginners, I can't tape the gear so that you can't see them. I can't make sure that your form is good on the swim. Yeah. But I can walk you through. I can still give you a training plan. I'll put it that way. Yeah. I can't help hands-on the way I can if you're here. But if you need a training plan, I would say spend some time getting familiar with each of the disciplines. And then when you're ready to commit to like a race and you need to know how much should I be swimming, how many times should I ride, how far should I be biking, that's where you might want to give me a call and I can help you out with that.
That's great. I think a good candidate for you too is maybe somebody who's done a really small scale triathlon and wants to upscale. Wants to go to that next level, and that would be a good candidate for you as well. So we'll put all of Cori's contact information down below. But Cori, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it. And oh, it's so great to see your face. Cori and I met many years ago at a women's event, and we just became fast friends. We took a presentation class together, and it was an absolute blast. And so I'm honored and pleased that we got to spend this time together, and I'll definitely have you back on again in the future.
Yes, thank you so much. I love your show.
Oh, good. Well, thank you. All right, everybody, make sure to share the show if you enjoyed it, and we'll see you again next Friday at noon. Thank you, Cori.
Bye.